the different phases and stages they go through.
So you talked about the normal behavior and out of the normal behavior. And so dealing with children and adolescents, or may say teenagers now, what are some of the, can you just break it down, for people to understand in its simplest form? For a child, what are the normal behavioral patterns? And then at what stage do parents need to look at and say, this is out of the normal for children and teenagers?
Okay, so for children, for young children, it's very normal for children to move. Movement is key, right? But you find that when we have children who are moving, it becomes a problem for us, and we are interpreting like, why can't you just stay in one place? Your own is too much, right? I mean, I was somewhere, and this 4-year-old boy, he was all over the place. He was running, he was playing. And the mom got a hold of him, pulled him, and started spanking him. And she was like, people will think you don't have proper home training. So that is an expectation gap. The child was in what he was developmentally wired to do. That is where he is at developmental. Because one thing we need to understand is that the brain is one of the core drivers of behaviors of children. If you don't understand that, you're going to misinterpret every behavior. So that is an example of what is normal for the child. And when you see boys running like that, we tend to say they are rough, right? They are not rough. That is how boys develop, because boys develop their gross motor skills faster than boys, or earlier than boys. So we are talking about the bigger muscles of the body. That's why you find that boys are the ones climbing, they are jumping. And I'm talking about neurotypical boys, not neurodivergent, because there's a difference.
Okay, you're going to explain that.
Yes, there is a difference. So these are neurotypical boys, not neurodivergent. So when they are jumping, they are playing, what you do is give them something to express themselves. So like the mom I talked about, the 4-year-old, you were expecting to take a boy to a place they're going to spend extended long period of time, and you are expecting the child to sit in one place the whole time. And when the child was running, you got upset, and you are beating the boy, saying people will think you don't have home training. Because this is where we also miss it. We think that when children behave the way they are developmentally wired to behave, it's a reflection on us as the parents. There is a place for that, right? There is a place for that, but ultimately there are different things that drive the behaviors you see in children. It's not all about parenting. The brain is critical. It is key, and this is something that is not part of our public and media conversations, but it's very important that every caregiver needs to understand that the brain plays a critical role in how children behave.
I wanted to talk about the neurodivergent part of child development.
Okay, so we have the neurodivergent, and we also have adoptive kids, that's all adopted children. So the neurodivergent, for the example I gave, sometimes children can run around and be all over the place. It could be a sign of neurodivergence, but again, it can also be a normal development. And these are the things we help parents to sort out when they come. And for example, I've had parents reach out to me, they come for consultation. The school is saying I should bring a shadow teacher for my child. My child is not staying in one place. We are suspecting they have XYZ condition, right? And so we take them through a developmental behavior evaluation. We need to know, is this developmentally normal? Like I said, boys develop their gross motor skills earlier than girls, right? Is this developmentally normal, or is this actually a neurodevelopmental condition? So when we understand the difference, then we know exactly what to do, right? But people don't understand this. Even many educators don't understand it because they mimic each other. So, but when you understand that it's not every child who's running around necessarily has ADHD, like we like to say, ADHD. Some of them is normal behavior. And I've had this come, and I've told some people, okay, after the evaluation, sometimes they're like, this is a normal child behavior. And sometimes it is actually ADHD.
You even have girls, female children that are all over
exactly.
the place.
And so when you have female children, like, we begin to say, why are you behaving like a boy?
Yeah, like my daughter.
But children move. And one of the things that we've taken play movement away from them in schools. We are not allowing them to play. When we're growing up, we had short recess and long recess.
Yeah.
We will play, but now, no, we are not allowing these children to play. I've been to some classrooms that they are so tiny that there's not even space for them to move. And then when the children are jumping, you are complaining that they are, no. Move is something we need to keep in mind, that these children need. It's part of how the brain is wired for them to move. It aids learning. And this is one of the things I like about authentic Montessori schools. I mean, authentic, not some. Some of them will say they are Montessori, but they are not. They incorporate movements in schools. You cannot go to a real authentic Montessori and just see chairs like that. They move. If a child wants to lie down and be working or sit, they take different kind of postures. So there's room for them to move. All of that aids learning.
Okay, we'll still come back to the role of schools and the education system, but I'd like you to talk about, taking it from the story you shared about the mother with a 4-year-old who was beating the child and saying, oh, they would think that you don't have home training. And that brings me to the part of our culture and our upbringing. That mother behaved that way because that was the way she was also brought up. I mean,
Absolutely.
you and I,
right.
You can't misbehave when you're in public. You will be spanked. Right. And that's the way we were brought up. And if we don't have this knowledge you're sharing now, that's the same way we'll bring up our children. Right. So I'd like you to talk about how our culture, the way we were brought up as parents, how parents were brought up, now I'm parenting children, and also the pressure of society on us, because again, the mother was concerned about what people would say, looking at her and her son, and how this also affects child development.
Right. So let me give you an example now. There was a day one of my our other neighbor opposite gate, they came to our house, and as the girl walked into the house, the first thing she asked my daughter was, does your mom spank? Does she yell? And so she was tiptoeing. She didn't sit. And my daughter was wondering what's going on. So my daughter was like, no, none of that. And then I came and I gave her a hug and she became relaxed. Now, subsequently, when she sees me, she runs to come and hug me. Now, what does that mean? That child has been conditioned that way, right? Yeah. So her nervous system at that point in time was in kind of, so she was scanning for threats. She didn't feel safe. Why? In her house, they beat. And this is how most of us grew up. You go to a place, you don't just sit, you are scanning and you are looking, oh, am I going to get in trouble, right? And until when I came, her nervous system became calm and safe. And she got used to me that way. Now, we have given our girls a different upbringing, a different cultural setting, even in the home, that, hey, we don't beat. So their nervous system is consistently safe, is not hyper-vigilant. And we carry this into adulthood like you talked about. Now, when I was doing my master's in the US, I was the assistant of my HOD, which we call department chair there. I was teaching law and the media to 300, 400 and final year students. So I was doing my research. And so she called me into her office and she said, hey, come on in. And guess what she did? She stood up from her own chair and asked me to come and sit on it. Because the software I was going to use, she was going to give me her password and I was going to be using her laptop. Now, when she stood up, be that I was coming from a culture where we are hyper-vigilant like that girl, our nervous systems are scanning for safety. It's unheard of in Nigeria. Your HOD gets up from a chair and you want to sit. You know, so our brains have been programmed to be in that survival mode. So at that point, I froze because my brain was saying, what do I do? This was unusual. I mean, what's going on here? And she was like, no, that's fine. And I sat. Believe you me, I was not even comfortable on that chair where I was sitting. So this is the kind of culture we've come from, right? Then over time, my nervous system became safe and relaxed. I will see her and it's fine. And we also have the culture of an adult does not greet you first. If they do, even you will start scanning yourself. What have I done wrong? I'm sorry. You know, I was in the US and my professors are the first to greet me. That was also another culture shock. Why? Because we are coming from a different culture where we've been raised that you must greet another. If an adult greets you, they are trying to tell you,
don't you know you should?
Exactly. You didn't see me. And you're already in trouble. You will start apologizing for, and you haven't done anything wrong. So this is the way the culture shapes us and it's ingrained in our brain and it keeps us hyper-vigilant. Again, we're also talking about, and those are things we call respect. It's not respect. You walk into an office, everybody's scattered. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma. Welcome here. It's not, that is fear that has been conditioned in us from when we're little. Even now, we see how people who are 40 years, they can't even sit on the same chair with their parents. They will stand and be talking to them, right? So this is how parenting has conditioned us, and our brains have been in that way that we are hypervigilant. Our nervous system are in survival mode. We are wondering, am I safe? Is this okay for me? So all of this needs to change, right? And like you rightly said, the knowledge was not there, and that is why we do what we do, right? So we know, hey, this is not in the best interest of our children. Okay,
saying that now, that's because in my head, parents that yell at their children. Okay, if you are in our WhatsApp group, I hope you are listening.
There are many.
Okay, but so now, with this knowledge that you have released, how do we draw the line? Because again, we cannot raise irresponsible children. We cannot raise children that do not respect their elders and respect everyone around them.
Right.
So how do you do this properly? How do you draw the line between respecting and then being nonchalant? What's the best way to discipline?
Okay, so you were talking about types of parenting the other time, parenting styles. So we have about 4. We have the authoritative, we have authoritarian, we have permissive, and we have neglectful. Most of us grew up under authoritarian, which means authoritarian is there is high control but low warmth. It is either my way or the highway. That's what I just described as authoritarian. Now you have authoritative. There is warmth and there is structure. It is both high. That means I give you rules. There are expectations. I'm not going to place in a situation that you cannot fulfill what I'm asking you to do based on your development, right? So I tell you, okay, you need to keep this cup in this place. How old is this child? If it's a 3-year-old and I know the child cannot do that, I can remove this and put a plastic cup. But what authoritarian will do, they will put this one here and tell the 3-year-old, don't touch it. You touch it, you know what will happen now, right? So that's not what we're, so what I think, there is warmth and there is structure. There are consequences. That is how you raise a rounded child. Now, I was reading in the newspaper some days back, there was this girl who went blind. How did she go blind? When she was 6. I can't remember what she did. Her dad brought her the belt to flog her. In that process, now it wasn't his intention to blind his daughter, but in that process, let me discipline my daughter. The belt hit the girl's eye. Now she's blind. So these are the things that happen, right? So we need to be authoritative parents, not authoritarian, and not also permissive. So permissive is there is high warmth and low structure. So you can tell a child, don't do this, and child come, mommy please. For example, let's say you're telling your child you're not going to get a phone till you're 16, and child comes, mommy please, now my classmate, nobody has, mommy please. Okay, and you buy the phone. That's permissive parenting, right? Because you high warmth, but the structure is not there. Then you have the neglectful, and you have those kind of parents that just do whatever I like. After I don't born, you come this world. Whatever you do, and you know there is an adage they say, picking where go good. You've heard that, right? Picking where go good. You don't need any input. If you want to be good, your brain should tell you to. That's neglectful. You're just letting the child just do whatever. And that's not how it should be. So authoritative, you are the authority figure. You are the parent. You are the leader. And you lead the child. You don't let them to do just whatever they like. But there is warmth. You create an avenue, an opening. Yes, that's where the balance is. That they can come to you, right? That does not mean, so for example, if a child goes contrary to the rules, the child can come and meet and mommy, but that does not excuse the consequences. You say, yes, I know, you're sorry, yes, fine, but this is what you're supposed, you know the consequences, it's going to happen. That's authoritative parenting, and that's the one that produces the best outcome in children.
Okay, you just shared a story about, sad story that it is about a father who was beating his child. So now, because again, children will test you.
Of course.
They will push you.
It's part of their job. That's their job.
That's their job. So
it's their job.
How then do you draw the line again between self-control and anger? And then when you have to discipline, how do you do it in love and not of anger? Okay, so that is very crucial. That's an amazing question. One thing we need to understand is self-control is key, it's critical, it's something we must develop, right? Because when they go contrary, I expect them to go contrary to some of your rules that you give, right? And it's not because it's deliberate, it is the brain. They will test boundaries, they will push back onto see, okay, let me even see if you're going to carry out these consequences, right? They want to see what you would do. When they do that, now, like I said, discipline also depends on the age of the child and the stage of development. How you discipline a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old is not the same way you discipline a teenager. And discipline is not beating. This is something we need to understand, because when you say discipline, everybody just thinking is to be like that man said he was disciplining his child. Discipline is not beating. Discipline is to teach, to create structure, to help them, to equip them with skills. Not inflicting pain.
Yes, it's not inflicting pain. And then you say, I'm doing this thing because I love you. Pain and love, they don't coexist. You know, we have a viral case recently of someone who the father was beating on live TV. People said the man was disciplining his daughter. That is not discipline. That is violence. So discipline is not inflicting pain. It is teaching, equipping them with skills so that they can make the right decisions whether or not you are there. So it takes a lot of work, right? It takes a lot of intentionality, and it begins from birth. So it's not like a child has gotten to one point. You start from the very beginning. Okay, this is unacceptable. You do it by the age and the stage of the child. So that is very important. It's not like you're carrying cane and flogging them. They are 2, they are 3, they are 4, 5, and you are just beating them and you say discipline. That's not discipline.
So how do you discipline a toddler now?
So a toddler, first of all, what do they need? What does a toddler need? Right? Now, from the brain perspective, infancy ends at age 3. Infancy ends at age 3. And that's what we call toddlers. But your toddler is still an infant.
Okay.
Because that's how their brains are developing. The first rapid stage of brain development is 3. Right? The first rapid is 3 years old. So when you have a child who is 3, 2, 1, you have infant, but our interpretation of infancy is 12 months old. So we begin from there. When you understand this, when you see a toddler, let me use your words, right? When you see a toddler doing something, you're going to say, okay, what do they need? It is not beating, it is redirection or guidance. That's discipline. Now, let me give you an example. I was taking a walk one day with my girls, and I saw 2 ladies walking towards us. And when they got to where we were, this boy just threw his lollipop on the floor and he was stomping his feet on the ground. Guess what the mom did?
Reset the brain.
Resetting the brain. And me being why I just couldn't look. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And the other woman was trying to stop her. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, oh, he has anger issues. I've been warning him. He has anger issues. And I said, okay, so what are you doing? Yeah, I'm disciplining him. And I said, how old is this boy? She said, 18 months.
Uh-oh.
So, and I'm like, 18 months, this is an infant. So what do you do? How do you discipline? You pick up the lollipop, or you ask him to pick up the lollipop. Okay, what is it? You allow the child to calm down, because at that time, the brain, the emotional part of the brain is very active. And that is why it looks like children that age, everything they do is with their body. We call them dramatic. Yes. That is where their brain is. Because at that point, they haven't really developed enough language to express what they are feeling. So they will act it out in their body. So what you will see is that, first of all, that boy looks like he was frustrated with something, or maybe he didn't like it. Maybe it was one he wanted and he bought another one. Is it acceptable for him to do that? No. But you teach him, which is discipline. So the first thing is, okay, let's assume he wanted pink lollipop and the mom bought him the orange one, and he threw it on the floor, because I don't know what happened. Let's just assume that's what happened. You can pick it and say, okay, you allow him, because at that time, if you try to talk to him, he can't hear you. His brain is already flooded with emotions. You just give him space, allow him. After everything, it's okay, come. What's the matter? What is it? Is it this? You don't want the child to talk to you in any way he can. Is it the yellow one or the red? Okay, so that's okay. Next time, just touch. Mommy, please, orange. You do, and you repeat it over and over. It's not going to happen once. There's a lot of patience involved. That's for that age level. So you can see the difference. You see the discipline of what I described and what the mom was doing. Because what the mom did, she beat him without doing anything. After beating, did you teach him anything? No, but you said you discipline. Now, tomorrow, that child will either do the same thing, or he will not be confused and do something else, because he doesn't know what to do when he's in that kind of situation. So that is what discipline is. You discipline, you teach them this is the right way to be. So when you do that, you're also teaching them emotions regulations from that early age, based on how their brains can handle it. So you're letting them know, hey, it is not okay to just be doing that. You can come and kind of express yourself. It's not going to be perfect, but you start like that and you continue. So that is what discipline should look like.
Now let's talk about teenagers. We've talked about toddlers or infants. Let's talk about teenagers. Teenagers are very, very spectacular breeds. You know, they're always moody, withdrawn, they don't smile. You can't get across, you can't get through.
They roll in their eyes.
So let's talk about teenagers and how, you know, you understand my question, even we have nourished. Go ahead, please.
Now, teenagers are really an interesting breed, but they are often misunderstood. We tend to give them a bad rep because we don't understand them.
But we're once teenagers.
Yeah, that's okay. So the thing is, when you understand how development works, you look at yourself, you're like, okay, so this also was happening with me. right? Now, one thing we need to understand is teenagers are just like toddlers. They are the bigger versions. At the teenage years, the brain is going through a lot of pruning. And one thing we need to understand, one of the core drivers of behavior, like I said, is the brain development, very immature. Their brains are still developing. Now, the brain is not fully developed till around early 30s. Before, we used to think it's 25, but a new research came out last year, it's early 30s. Which means, and that's why I talked about child development, there are going to be different phases and stages. The behaviors is because of the immature brain. It's not necessarily about parenting, especially at the teenage level. Especially at the teenage level. So the things you see at that teenage, it's mainly driven by the brain. One thing with teenagers, they are highly reactive, their emotions. You see them slamming doors, they are getting very emotional, things, a lot of outbursts. And you talked about moodiness and all of that. And teenagers there's a lot of risk taking in the teenage brain. A lot of risk taking. They will do things that you'll be thinking, but I thought you knew better. It's not like you didn't teach them. That's the teenage brain working. So it's not really about parents. So when people blame parents, because that's what happened, it's your parents that you didn't train your child. No, now let me even give you an example. I was reading something recently, and they said 2 to 3 years old in America. It was somebody in Nigeria that was saying that, they suspend them from daycare. Why are they doing that? Some now say, it's the parents, they did not train their children. We're talking about 2 and 3 year olds. And I got into the comment section. I'm like, no, I lived in the US. I took my child through that process. That system, they are not even trained in child development. They don't understand these things. So when a child is behaving in a way they don't understand, what they do is tell them to go on timeout. And if they cannot handle it, they will suspend the child at daycare. They did that to my friend. And she took the child and put him in home care. Today he's a fine young man. So they are doing what they're supposed to do. Now let's talk about teenagers. Now recently we had the Benedium crisis that happened. Everybody said the parents. It was bullying and all of that. Now that wasn't even a bullying case. That was adolescents' gang behavior. And this is what people need to understand. There is a difference. What happened? The core drivers of every behavior you saw there was the brain. Now, I'm going to give you an example. One of the boys who recorded, they say, this boy is recording and he's laughing. He doesn't have empathy. The parents didn't train him. You will see children who we call they are from good homes and they get involved in things like that. It's not necessarily about the parenting. It is the brain. At that stage, they gravitate towards their peers. They want peer validation. So that boy, it was not because he lacked empathy. Teenagers have empathy. What was happening was that the boy was seeing his other gang mates, it's like this is us versus them, versus the kids that they were beating. So even if he didn't want to, but because he was in that charged atmosphere, his loyalty was to his friends. And that was what happened. And what happened, why the boy didn't do anything, there's something we call hot and cold reasoning. When hot reasoning kicks in for an adolescent, even if you've taught them all the values in the world, it's going to take the back seat. Why? Because they want to belong. There's something called the need for belonging. They don't want to be the odd one or the Judas. And that is why they would do that. Now, if they were just like 2 of them, the child could have said, okay, it's easy for him to say, this way I'm doing is wrong, don't do it. But because they were more and the atmosphere is charged, the brain at that time, the logic part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, is the last part of the brain to develop, that helps you make judgment, helps you weigh long-term consequences. It's suppressed. And the emotional part of the brain, which is the reward system, that is what is highly active in teenagers. And so it's not because they don't know right from wrong, or they don't know their left from their right. It is that at that point in time, the reward system is highly active, and that is why they would that. So there are a lot of kind of risky behaviors that go on in the teenagers. So many of them, girls, boys, there are so many things that they do.
Still, using that story you shared now as a yardstick, I want to believe that what you're saying is not that we are ruling out the training part of the parents.
No, of course not.
We are not also ruling out the kind of homes that these children come from. So I'd love us to talk about the role of the home front now. Are parents being intentional in parenting? Are parents doing what they should do in raising up their children? Because again, if you don't raise up a child well, that child will bring problem.
And that's the clarification I'm trying to make. So there are different things that shapes a child. There are different things that leads to these behaviors. Parenting definitely is one of them. We are not reading that. The home environment is one of them. Environment can be different. You have school environment, you have community environment, you have friends, that's an environment. The church is an environment. The media they consume is an environment. So environment is whatever they interact with. So for the teenage years, because the teenage brain, they gravitate towards their peer, they will listen more to their peers than to their parents. That's how teenagers are. That is just is neuroscience and developmental science. So it's not necessarily because the parents did not do what they're supposed to do. Now let me give you a popular example. There's a famous preacher, I don't want to mention the name, right? From a godly home. We all know they have strong values. But guess what? The daughter became a teen mom. She had a child at 14. What are you going to say? Well, but we say the parents did not train her well. Isn't that what we are going to say? That all the fingers is the parents. Now, when everything happened, the father said, I would rather stick with my daughter than the church. I'm ready to forgo the church. This is a famous preacher. I'm ready to forgo the church and stick with my child. This guy came from a solid home. Emotional intelligence, very solid warmth, an authoritative home, high structure, high boundary and warmth. And this happened. What could have happened? That was the teenage brain. Like I said, that's a risky behavior in the teenage brain. And that has to do with curiosity. Sometimes some of the girls who get involved with that is because they're trying to meet the need for belonging. Am I accepted? Who am I? Am I wanted? Those are the things going on with the teenager. Identity issues, right? But and again, some of them is out of curiosity. So when you see teenagers do a lot of things, they are getting involved in drugs and all of that, it's not because they necessarily came from bad homes. And this is I don't like to give an example of my clients that you don't know, but I give example of popular ones that you can go and Google and see for yourself. And this lady went through this phase for years. Low self-esteem, she had to be in therapy. It was not because she was from a bad home. She was from a solid home, proper home bringing, but that happened. So that is a risky behavior, and that was out of curiosity. And like I said, I've also had cases where the reason the girls did that was because we're looking for the need for belonging.
Validation.
Yes, am I loved? Am I cared for? Sometimes that need is not being met at home, and that is the thing. Are parents doing enough? One of the things parents believe, as long as I've given my child the best education, I've given the best gadget, I've done what I'm supposed to do. It goes beyond that. Children have needs that need to be met. If a child can come from that kind of home and their need for belonging is not being met, they will go out to seek for it in ways that you will not even like. And then you'll be wondering, what did I do to deserve this? After all I have done, it is because the need is not being met. Now, sometimes, even when it is being met, they will still do it out of curiosity. So we need to understand all these dynamics, because what we do is that we tend to view behavior from a moral sense, moral lens. This child is good versus bad. When we do that, then we miss out core developmental realities like what I just talked about. So there are different things that lead to behavior. Parenting is one of them. The brain is a fundamental driver of behavior, especially at the teenagers. It's not necessarily because the parents didn't do their jobs.
Oh, time is not on our side. I think we'll need to have a part 2 of this conversation, our producer.
Absolutely.
And I know that whenever we call on you, you oblige us again, because I still have a lot of questions that I want to ask. But let's just wrap it up now, because the time is not our friend. What message do you have to parents who are struggling right now, who have children who they feel that there's a wall in between and they can't get through? What do you think they need to do? So
you need to build that strong connection. Let your child know you are available for example, my older daughter, she's almost 13. We have a lot of conversations, and I've told her, look, you're not going to play truth or dare. And she went to school one day. They played 2 truths and a lie, something like that. And when she came home, she only came to tell me. Why? Because I've made that avenue open. So it's very important to do that, so that when they do wrong, they can still come back to you for help and for guidance. All right. Child development and adolescent behavior patterns, an interesting, insightful, educative conversation that we've had with Dr. Fome Obimi. She is a child development consultant and founder Kids Development Hub. We're looking forward to a part 2 of this conversation. Absolutely. All right. The conversation continues. Stay with us.